looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines.
Meanwhile,
China's Defense Minister Li Shangfu warned that a Cold War mentality is resurgent in the Asia-Pacific region. But Beijing seeks dialogue over confrontation. Li made the remarks at the ShangriLa Dialogue in Singapore, Asia's top security summit.
question.
And China's Defense Minister General Li Shangfu also warned foreign powers against provocative activities near Chinese waters, telling them to, quote, mind your business. He specifically criticized the U.S. for recent incidents, including a close encounter between U.S. and Chinese warships in the Taiwan Strait.
These are
Meanwhile, the White House warned that China's military aggression could lead to casualties in the near future. The warning comes after a series of near misses between Chinese and U.S. forces at sea and in the air. And here is the latest on the ongoing multinational naval drills taking place in Indonesia. Despite the rifts between the two powers, the United States and China have sent warships to the multinational naval drills that began in Indonesia on Monday. And we have developments from the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, where China's Defense Minister Li Shangfu expressed concerns about a resurgent Cold War mentality in the Asia-Pacific region. During a speech at the Top Security Summit, Li took subtle jabs at the U.S., highlighting long-standing grievances and accusing some countries of fueling an arms race and meddling in the internal affairs of others. Take a look.
Meanwhile, some country is expanding military bases, reinforcing military presence, and intensifying arms race in the region, and transferring nuclear weapon technologies to a non-nuclear state. All such practices, which it often resorts to, are designed to make enemy, stoke confrontation, fuel the fire, and fish in troubled waters. The Cold War mentality is now resurging and greatly increases security risks of bloc confrontation in the Asia-Pacific. Some big power continue to promote its so-called Indo-Pacific strategy. China holds that no strategy should be based on ideological ground and aim to build exclusive military alliances against imagined threats, as this could easily lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, the Asia-Pacific is a shared home where regional countries live and thrive. On the other hand, we should not ignore that the Asia-Pacific faces unprecedented security challenges. People cannot but ask these questions. Who is disrupting peace in the region? What are the root causes of chaos and instability? And what should we stay vigilant and guard against? We in China believe that the key for countries to live in harmony is mutual respect and treating each other as equals. We are strongly opposed to imposing one's own will on others, placing one's own interests above those of others, and pursuing one's own security at the expense of others. Some country has willfully interfered in other countries' internal affairs and meddled in the affairs of other countries, and frequently resorted to unilateral sanctions and coercion with force. It has incited color revolutions and proxy wars in different regions, created chaos and turbulence, and just walked away, leaving a mess behind. We must never allow such things to happen again in the Asia-Pacific. China firmly supports ASEAN centrality and its strategic autonomy. Together with ASEAN countries, we will continue to accelerate consultations on the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, or COC, We will manage risks and crises by advancing air and maritime security talks and strictly following and continuously improving the Code of Unplanned Encounters at Sea, or CUES. We will address security issues in emerging areas and explore the formulation of rules for space, cyber, and biological security.
Now, it is worth noting that Lee has been subject to U.S. sanctions since 2018 due to the purchase of combat aircraft and equipment from Russia's leading arms exporter, Rosoboronet Export. His address in Singapore marked his first significant international appearance since becoming China's defense minister in March. Li Shangfu did not directly mention any specific country, but his remarks seemed to allude to the United States. The U.S. has been actively strengthening alliance and partnerships in the Asia-Pacific region. It's part of the AUKUS alliance, which includes Australia and Britain, and is also a member of the Quad alongside Australia, India, and Japan. Now, these alliances have been a focal point of Washington's regional engagement. Now, Mr. Lee countered during his remarks by extending an offer for military partnership with Southeast Asian countries, emphasizing the importance of mutual respect. However, the reactions from different Southeast Asian delegations painted a picture of a divided family. Several delegates pointed out that while China speaks of cooperation, its actions convey a different message, creating a sense of skepticism and doubt. Take a look.
Good morning. You mentioned China wants to promote dialogue over confrontation. So my question is about the apparent disconnect between China's words and actions related to its maritime interaction with the Philippines and perhaps with others in the region. For example, when President Marcos and President Sim met in Beijing, they agreed to manage differences through peaceful means and to promote freedom of navigation and overflight above South China Sea, and reach consensus on the powerful resolution of disputes on the basis of the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. But in the same month, Filipino fishermen were simply fishing in Philippines' exclusive economic zone were harassed and driven away by China Coast Guard in violation of international law. The following month, your Coast Guard directed a military-grade laser into the Philippine Coast Guard vessel inside the Philippine exclusive economic zone under the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. So while China is talking about dialogue, China's actions show confrontation. Thus, my question is, why is there a big difference between China's words and its actions? Thank you.
You see justice and equity be applied in the South China Sea disputes, where China has competing maritime and territorial claims with Southeast Asian countries. And to borrow the questions that you eloquently raised in your speech, what are the rules and who make the rules? I would like to add, are these rules, or are they not anchored in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea?
I said in my speech that we must observe the UNCLOS. That is, of course, a must. Freedom of navigation, innocent passage, we have not seen any problem with that. What is key now is that we must prevent attempts that want to use those freedom of navigation and innocent passage as a pretext to exercise hegemony of navigation. As defense minister, every day I see a lot of information about foreign vessels and fighter jets coming to areas near our territory. They're not here for innocent passage. They're here for provocation. So we have to observe, in order to truly observe UNCLOS, we have to fully understand the essence of this convention and abide by the code stipulated in this convention.
Meanwhile, China's Minister of National Defense, General Li Shangfu, also issued a stern warning to foreign powers regarding their activities near the Chinese territorial waters. He specifically pointed fingers at Washington, blaming it for recent provocative encounters between U.S. and Chinese military units. During his speech, General Lee expressed concern over what he referred to as a Western policy of hegemony of navigation, which he identified as the root cause of Saturday's incident in the Taiwan Strait. The incident involved the USS Chang-hun, a guided missile destroyer from the U.S., and the CNS Suzhou, a guided missile destroyer from the People's Liberation Army Navy, during a transit through the Taiwan Strait. Take a look.
Question. One fact is clear. Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. The Chinese government and the Chinese military will never tolerate any incident that could lead to a divided China. The incidents you mentioned, why did all those incidents happen in areas near China, not in areas near other countries? I think that is because Chinese naval vessels or Chinese fighter jets will not do those hegemony of navigation actions in areas near other countries. To truly prevent such incidents in the future, we not only need the codes we already have. The best way is for all the countries, especially the naval vessels and fighter jets, all countries, not to do closing actions around other countries' territories. What's the point going there? For China, we always say, mind your own business.
Now, the incident came on the heels of a tense encounter involving a Chinese jet and a U.S. surveillance plane over the South China Sea. According to the U.S. military, the encounter on May 26 was characterized as a risky maneuver by a Chinese jet, which flew dangerously close to an RC-135 surveillance plane. The White House accuses China of displaying an increasing level of aggressiveness following recent military maneuvers that led to 2 near collisions over or with U.S. forces. These incidents have raised concerns about the safety and stability of maritime operations in the region. U.S. officials condemned China's actions and emphasized the need for adherence to international norms and rules to prevent further escalations. The situation underscores the growing tensions between the two countries and the challenges they face in maintaining a peaceful coexistence. That's SNN.
These are part and parcel of an increasing level of aggressiveness by the PLA, the PRC's military, particularly in the area of the Taiwan Straits and in the South China Sea. The air intercept was over the South China Sea, and the maritime intercept that you talk about was in the Straits. And sadly, this is just part, again, of a growing aggressiveness by the PRC that we're dealing with, and we're prepared to address it. You heard Secretary Austin speak to that out at the. What I would tell you from our perspective is, we're flying, we're sailing, we're operating in international airspace and international waters, and both of those incidents were in complete compliance with international law. There was absolutely no need for the PLA to act as aggressively as they did. It won't be long before somebody gets hurt. That's the concern with these unsafe and unprofessional intercepts. They can lead to misunderstandings. They can lead to miscalculations. When you have pieces of metal, obviously, when you fly and sail as aggressively, and you saw the video for yourself. I mean, you don't need me to tell you how aggressive it was. You're trying to send some kind of a message. At the very least, it's a statement of some sort of displeasure about our presence in that part of the world.
And here's the latest on the ongoing multinational naval drills taking place in Indonesia. Despite the rifts between the two powers, the U.S. and China have sent warships to the multinational naval drills that began in Indonesia on Monday. The U.S. Navy has sent a littoral combat ship to the exercise, while the Chinese Defense Ministry said it would send a destroyer and a frigate. Australia and Russia were also expected to send warships. The drills, which will primarily focus on non-military operations and cooperation with key allies, will involve a total of 17 foreign vessels. And it's worth noting also that tensions between the U.S. and China have been particularly high this year, with disputes over various Asia-Pacific issues, including Taiwan. The self-ruled U.S.-backed island is considered by China as its own territory. Additionally, they've also been engaged in a diplomatic tussle over Pacific Island nations. Recently, tensions escalated further when an alleged Chinese spy balloon flew over the U.S., prompting it to be shut down. Addressing the situation, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, who attended a defense summit in Singapore last week, emphasized the importance of renewing dialogue between the two nations to prevent misunderstandings that could potentially escalate into conflict. However, China has declined an invitation for its defense chief to meet Austin on the sidelines of the defense summit. In tonight's other news, the United Nations revealed that drug trafficking networks in Asia are adapting their strategies, increasingly utilizing sea routes to smuggle methamphetamines out of Myanmar. At the same time, they are expanding their production of ketamine, aiming to grow their illicit business. Take a look.
Is that organized crime groups been always trying to look for circumvent the law enforcement responses adopted by the Mekong and also Southeast Asian law enforcement authorities. So in 2022 and early 2023, we have noted that maritime trafficking has gained a significant importance in crystal meth trafficking in the region. The meth seizure totaled 151 tons, which is about 20 tons less than 2021. Once again, we were able to see the record low wholesale price of methamphetamines. And we've also witnessed the diversified meth tablet brands since the military takeover in February 2021 in Myanmar.
According to the annual report by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, methamphetamine production in Myanmar's northeastern Shan state, a major hub for the drug, is being smuggled via boats to evade tighter land route patrols through China and Thailand. The border region shared by Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand has long been notorious for illegal drug production and trafficking, particularly involving meth and opium. In response to increased drug patrols in China's Yunnan province and along the Myanmar-Thailand border, drug traffickers have turned to alternative maritime routes. The UN report highlighted a surge in Myanmar-produced meth flowing into Bangladesh and India.
And that drop in Yunnan and the drop as well in Thailand, which really is pronounced in northern Thailand last year, was a clear routing around northern Myanmar. Northern Thailand and the Golden Triangle, pushing 30 days. So we're looking at a massive change in trafficking patterns as we speak, as these major loads are negotiated and shipped. Maritime will feature heavily in that for the reason you mentioned, which is, frankly, it's hard to police the high seas, especially on oceans like the Andaman that are wide open and lots of fishing vessels.
The use of methamphetamine can have severe health consequences, including paranoia, hallucinations, violent behavior, and withdrawal symptoms, leading to psychosis. And we bring you an important update on the rapidly changing avian influenza virus, which has been causing record cases in birds worldwide. Experts are now warning that the avian influenza virus is changing rapidly and could pose a risk to humans. The virus has been detected in a soaring number of mammals, including sea lions, penguins, and dolphins. While the risk to humans is still considered low, experts say it's important to be vigilant. The H5N1 avian influenza virus has been around for decades, but it has been changing rapidly in recent years. This is due to a process called genetic drift, which is when the virus randomly mutates, and these mutations can make the virus more infectious, more deadly, or better able to spread between different species. The good news is that the risk of human infection from avian influenza is still considered low. However, the virus is changing rapidly, and there is always the possibility that it could mutate in a way that makes it more easily transmissible to humans. And this is why it's important for people to take precautions such as washing their hands frequently and avoiding contact with sick birds. To mitigate the risk to humans, experts suggest that countries should prioritize vaccinating their poultry. Some nations, including China, Egypt, and Vietnam, have already conducted vaccination campaigns for poultry. The World Organization for Animal Health Director General Monique Elliott stressed the importance of discussing the issue of vaccinating poultry and finding effective strategies to combat the spread of avian influenza. And lastly, tonight we bring you an inspiring story of community action and environmental stewardship all the way from the city of Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. On this World Environment Day, the city has launched a remarkable citywide cleanup drive, taking a stand against the detrimental effects of plastic pollution. Eco Artelesa Quinola reports.
Papua New Guinea is one with the world in celebrating World Environment Day 2023, Beat Plastic Pollution.
The city of Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, supporting World Environment Day, continues with its citywide cleanup drive in its battle against plastic pollution. Representatives from various sectors of the community combed the streets to clean and put away plastic containers and trash.
I think we can only do so much and what little we can contribute. So our way is just collecting rubbish, any plastics, anything, clearing around our vicinity. And I feel like a little contribution goes a long way.
The drainage system is, we can blame the engineering, but it's partly our people's fault where we throw rubbish everywhere like carelessly. That's blocking the drainage system. As an organization, DayTech is committed to contributing to the social and environmental obligations, achieving that fight that NCDC is trying to do.
Meanwhile, the grand celebration of World Environment Day in Port Moresby commenced with an 8-kilometer walk and morning exercises sponsored by the Active City Development Program. United Nations Development Program Resident Representative Drick Wagener presented ways of conserving the environment.
Plastic is everywhere. We are producing too much of it. It litters our oceans, it litters our beaches, our forests, our streets, our villages. So it inspires me to come here today and to see so many people who actually came together to take action. There's a lot of talk about recycling, but we've also heard that actually much of the plastic is not recycled. It all ends up in a landfill or is even burnt. So we have to reduce it, we have to avoid it in the first place and look for alternatives.
For us, one of those things is like obviously to inspire action, to stop using plastic, but most importantly is to create a big awareness that using plastic is really quite damaging to the environment and to the people. Port Moresby, please, don't use plastic too much. Try as much as possible to carry one water bottle that you can recycle and avoid using single-use plastic.
Governor Poe Sparkup says these two events are ways to remind the community to keep the surrounding clean, safe, healthy, and green.
Eco Artelesa Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Thanks, Echo. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angela. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.